More than ever, the world needs disinfectants, face masks, surgical gowns, and IV bags. We've increased our production of the raw materials they're made from and reconfigured our operations to make medical-grade hand sanitizer for the first time. Because everything we can do to help those on the front lines is nothing compared to what they're doing to help all of us.
All right. Hello, Texas FFA. We have another installment of our Growing the Future Leadership series. And once again, we've put together an extraordinary panel of subject matter experts, folks who are willing to share a little bit of their time, talent, and treasure to help our students have a competitive edge, something that might set them apart from their peers when pursuing college, pursuing scholarships, professional careers. And we're just honored to have the panel that we have join us today to talk about that, skills for a competitive edge. So we're going to go around here and let each person introduce themselves. So I'm going to start here by allowing Neely Nelson to introduce herself. She's no stranger to the FFA. She's a Texas FFA Foundation board member and a past state FFA officer. So, and she's got family in ag ed too, but we'll stop with Neely's credentials. So Neely, introduce yourself to the Texas FFA.
Thanks, Aaron. It's a pleasure to join the panel today. As Aaron said, my name is Neely Nelson. I currently live in Spring, Texas. I also presently work for ExxonMobil as the Global Deputy Operations P&GA Manager. I've been with the company going on 21 years. Joined the company and have been with the company ever since. It's been a great experience. So FFA has been a huge part of my life. My dad was an ag science teacher, so we went to conventions before we were old enough to walk and show. And then it's a pleasure to continue to stay involved with the organization. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Neely. And Captain Souza has joined us from the U.S. Army. Go ahead, sir. Share some of your background with us.
Good morning. My name is Captain Thomas Souza. I've been in the Army for about 16 years. I joined out of high school, went to the University of Louisville to earn my commission. I currently serve as the Assistant Professor of Military Science at Texas A&M Central Texas, where I train cadets to become future leaders and officers in the United States Army, and I share my experience with them every day. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to giving you guys some of the tips that help me get to where I am.
Excellent. And we have another Texas FFA Foundation board member with us. And I forgot to mention that Neely, ExxonMobil is the sponsor of our Agri-Science Fair every year at the State FFA Convention. And Keith Cline with CorePoint Lodging and Wyndham is also with us, and they are the sponsors, I guess, going on about 10 or 12 years now of the VIP breakfast. So with that, Keith, would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone, and good morning or afternoon, FFA, depending on when this is going to air. I'm Keith Cline, President and CEO of CorePoint Lodging, and for those that have been following along, CorePoint Lodging is a byproduct of us selling the La Quinta brand and management company to Wyndham and joining roughly a 9,000 hotel portfolio brand. Now, CorePoint continues to own about 260 La Quintas across the country, with our largest representation being in the state of Texas. And I got to tell you, I'm thrilled to be here today to share a little bit of insights around things that we might think give people a competitive edge as they get out there and start building their future.
Excellent. Well, with that, are y'all ready to jump in? Let's start talking about skills for a competitive edge. I'll just start off here just to throw some out, just to share with you kind of what we do with the ambassadors. One of the things In the world of COVID, this is going to be interesting how we change some of this. But what we've always told them is, number one, we always want you to give a firm handshake. You look people in the eye, you say your first and your last name. Mm-hmm. And then we always give them tips on how to begin a dialogue with people. And I don't mind sharing this publicly, but here's the tips that we share with the ambassadors. Number one, when you shake their hand, look them in the eye, say your first and last name, and you're trying to figure out how to start a conversation with adults, we always say start with the weather. Ask them about the weather. Now, don't ask me why. Everybody I know that has gray hair, but we all like to talk about the weather. And we'll talk about the weather and the way it is wherever we live. But what it does is it starts a conversation. It lightens the mood. We then talk about family, and then one thing leads to another, and before long, our students are having really dynamic discussions. And it all started with just a little tip, a little skill set that gives them a competitive edge. So with that, Neely, we'll start with you. What are some tips that you would share with students or teachers to create a competitive edge?
You know, it's funny, Aaron, you mentioned, the ambassadors, and each year at the convention, they seek me out, they'll call me, figure out where they can meet me. First thing they do is shake my hand, and they start a conversation. I don't recall if it was about the weather initially, but I'll be focusing on that in the future. But, a lot of the skills that we have in FFA, quite frankly, we take for granted because you assume that the rest of the population has that same set of polished and basic socialization skills, and a lot of people really don't get that kind of a foundation. And so I see that a lot when we bring in candidates to interview. Things like you said, again, it'll be different in a COVID world, but somebody with a really strong handshake, looking you in the eye, as soon as you finish that interview, sending a follow-up thank you note. My thing would be, in this day and age, send an electronic one so it gets there immediately, then send a handwritten one if you're really committed to joining them. Some of those things seem very obvious, but there are very few people that actually do that. Another thing I would say is, there are a lot of people that will reach out to me as a past alumni or past FFA member, and they'll ask me, what we look for in candidates, or ask for some insights in looking for jobs or enhancing their skills. And you'd be surprised at the amount of people you'll spend a good 30 minutes having a conversation with, and you'll never hear from them again. It's not hard after that conversation to send me a follow-up note saying, it was such a great pleasure to visit with you. Thank you for this insight. If you ever come across anything that might be a good fit for me, here's my contact information. Or if they've moved on, they follow up again and say, hey, I've moved, I graduated from college. Here's my new address. If you have anything again, let me know. Because there have been times where I didn't have an opportunity for someone, thought they were really good, maintained contact for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they fell off the radar, and then an opportunity came and I couldn't reach out to them to see if they might still be interested. So I would also say it's very important to maintain those contacts, but also be very gracious for people to spend their time with you. Don't feel like if you don't get an actual opportunity, it wasn't worth your time. Folks have a lot of insight that they can share, and I think being open to recognizing that and appreciative of folks can also help build that network for you.
That's excellent. Yeah, I wrote some notes here too. I'm taking notes too. So I know the students, we're showing our age, those of us who are using pen and paper, because the students are putting it in their phone right now, but I still do it old school. I take notes. But anyway, Captain Souza, what would you say? What are some tips that you would give a student that would give them a competitive edge, maybe against their peers?
Definitely everything that's already been mentioned, because all this stuff is developed over time, and these people on this panel have spent so much time developing their leadership characteristics and their leadership style. But as a young student, as a high school student, you're only going to be as good as those around you and your parents have made you so far, because you don't have a lot of life experience. So what you do with that small life experience is important, and it goes forward in your career. So whatever you do it the best you can, and be a person of character. The good handshake and all those things are going to add to your character, and they're going to leave that imprint. The things Miss Neely was talking about are going to leave an imprint, something that someone's going to say, that kid, he or she, they have some potential, because that's all people look for is potential. So if you dot your T's and your I's and show potential, you're going to be successful. And that comes with doing the best you can do at everything. And you may not be the best. It may put you in the top 20, but that's 80% above the rest. So as long as you do your best at anything that you have control over, that your name goes on, that your teacher sees, your professor sees, your boss may see, it should be the best thing that you can put out there. And it takes time. So in order to do that, you have to think more than just one step ahead. You have to plan to be proficient in your tasks that you do. So I always like to ask myself the 5 W's. Who's going to see this? Why are they going to see it? What's the impact that's going to happen to me? You can ask the 5 W's in all kinds of different tenses. And the more you do that, the better you're going to be at being a professional, a person with character, and that people want to have on their team.
Wow, excellent. Thank you so much. Keith, what do you got for us?
Well, I tell you what, you guys have made my life pretty easy by nailing pretty much all the fundamentals out there. The one thing that I would add to it is, throughout my career, I've noticed that it seems like it's the very small things that make the difference with people that are high level, high achievers, right? It could be as simple as the firm handshake, looking somebody straight in the eye and speaking clearly, talking with a level of respect. But then as you think about what I'm interested in when I'm meeting a young professional that I may want to bring into my organization, there's certain characteristics that I'm looking for in that person. Are they inquisitive, right? Do they appear to be engaged? Are they asking questions? And to your point, Aaron, it can be as simple as, how's the weather where you're from, right? But are they interested in the person that they're speaking with? And over time, I found that, there's a few leadership characteristics that are really hard to identify out of the gate that I think I've worked hard at cultivating over my career. And I encourage all young people to think about, success isn't going to be dictated 15, 20 years after you're out of school based on your technical proficiency in what you do, because technical proficiency is table stakes, right? Everybody needs to be proficient technically. It's going to be those small things that make you distinctive, and typically it comes down to how you deal with people and how you communicate, right? Do you make a lasting impression? And there's a few characteristics that I focused on throughout my career that I think are important. The first is emotional awareness and control, and that's really a fancy way of just saying, be consistent and be predictable. When you're dealing with people, always be consistent with how you're treating everybody. Be very predictable with your behavior. Stay emotionally controlled. A lot of people will think to that and say, well, you're talking about emotional intelligence. That's exactly what I'm talking about, is being aware of your surroundings and being aware of how you behave affects the people that are around you. And you can see that in young people when they first join your organization. Are they aware or are they not? The second is really the ability to sense and respond. I really look for people that can tailor the way they communicate to the people that are around them. And you've got to be able to relate to a lot of different types of people to be a leader. You can't lead just one way. You certainly can't lead the way that you want to be led. You have to understand the way that people receive and process information and tailor the way you communicate to them. Now, that's a skill that is acquired over time with a lot of practice. But it's never too early to start. I wish somebody would have pulled me aside when I was in high school and said, things like being an effective communicator and being able to understand how your actions affect other people and being emotionally in control are going to define the way that your success may or may not play out in the future. But instead, we're focused on technical proficiency. And I wish we focused a lot more on leadership, which is one of the big reasons why I was drawn to the FFA. You said to me a long time ago, Aaron, if you ever get curious about where the future leaders are in this country, just go to an FFA convention. And I couldn't agree with you more. And the last thing that I'll mention before we kind of turn it back over to you is active listening. I've generally found that, my dad told me a long time ago, there's a reason why God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen a lot more than you talk in some cases, and listen to what people are saying. Don't think about what you're going to say in response. and really practicing that and actively listening to people and asking clarifying questions. You know, if you're an ambassador out there working with a sponsor or a member of the board or whoever it may be engaged in what that person is saying, and then ask clarifying questions to learn more about the experiences that they may share with you.
Well, you know, everything that y'all just said is exactly why we put this leadership series together. The one thing that we've said repeatedly throughout the series is everybody that knows me, I'm always telling them, if you want to be the best, train with the best. And I think that's a competitive edge skill. If you want to be the best at something, go find the best and train with them. Ask them questions. For Neely and Keith, when the teachers get on the bus for the lead trip every year, they get a notebook. And the first thing that's in that notebook is the word question. And I always ask them, what is the root word of the word question? It's quest, to go on an adventure. And so we tell them, we want you to go on an adventure. Everywhere you go, ask questions. Ask questions and try to gain insights into why does Keith lead the way that he leads at CorePoint? Why does Neely lead the way that she does globally with ExxonMobil? And Captain Souza, how do you command? I mean, asking questions provides professional insight, and that becomes mentorship. Keith, something that you said, which I think is also a very good competitive skill set, and that is recognize that leadership is situational. You know, we talk about sometimes, you know, there's autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire styles of leadership, and we'll ask the student which one's best, and they'll say, well, democratic is the best. And we say, no, there are times where you've got to be autocratic. There's times where you've got to be laissez-faire. Leadership is situational, but that awareness, that's a skill set. That's something that kind of can give you a little bit of an edge. I'm going to share one right here, then we're going to go to the next round robin. One of the things that I use, and Neely has picked up on this, by the way, Neely, some of the notes that emails you've sent me or texts, but I'm a big fan of Google Alerts. So every one of our board members and every one of our sponsors, I have them set up on Google Alerts. So if any of our board members or our companies and our sponsors are in the news, every day I get an alert about that sponsor or about what they're doing. All I do is copy and paste it. I send it to Keith and I said, hey, congratulations. Looks like you hit another home run. Well, I hope Keith goes, wow, Aaron's paying attention to what's going on at Wyndham. When really I was just using a skill, a tool to maintain an awareness of what's going on. And I want that to separate my leadership style from somebody else. And I want it to separate the Texas FFA from other nonprofits. So that's an example of how I utilize technology or a skill set.
Aaron, if I could add one caveat to what you said, I think it's really important for the younger culture of upcoming future leaders is you said train with the best. What happens and what I've seen across my peers is, this is what I'm going to tell you young folks out there. Don't let your fear, apprehension of something new stop you. Because not taking that chance to go somewhere and do something new, you're going to miss an opportunity to develop yourself and the others around you and create opportunities to meet new people. So taking advantage of opportunities to train or do things that are out of my comfort zone has set me apart. And you have nothing but time and opportunity. So take it. Don't let anything stop you from saying, I'm going to try that, because someone else is going to take that opportunity from you.
Yeah, Captain Souza, I couldn't agree with you more. I guess this could end up being a session with quotes from my father. From the time I was very young, in high school, even before high school, he would tell me over and over and over, the only limiter to your success is fear of change.
Yep.
So if you're willing to go out there and take a risk and do something different, and you could get way out there, do something other people might be afraid to do, then you could set yourself apart from people.
Let's go around here real quick and do one more round robin here. Neely, we'll start with you. Can you give us an example of how you had a competitive skill, a skill set that gave you a competitive edge? Is there a time or a situation that you can remember that because you had a a skill set or a competitive edge that it set you apart from somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think with FFA, I can point to numerous experiences over the years that I would say this was an easier opportunity for me to pursue because of X, Y, and Z with FFA. I think one note that I think is more tangible for folks to see was, I graduated from Texas A&M, and I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go, or right before I graduated, I should say, I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go for my master's. And at A&M, they were opening up the Bush School for the former president, and it was going to be the inaugural class. They were only going to take a very limited number of students, and then of that, a subset would get full scholarship. And, I thought, wow, this sounds great. There's a lot of leadership that's part of that, the chance to visit with elected officials and former executives from their administration to hear about their leadership experiences, to learn at the same time. It was a great opportunity. But I thought, the odds of me getting in, with everyone looking in the very at the opportunity, the very limited number of spaces, but I also came in with a lot of leadership experiences, so my resume looked great in the sense that I had all of these activities that I'd done through FFA. I'd done livestock judging, I'd done leadership, public speaking, I had some internships, and so all of those things I think helped make me that much more well-rounded. And then when I went to interview, the interview was really a conversation. Because I wasn't intimidated to be there. I felt like I deserved a spot, that I had something to offer, that I could build on experiences with other students, which is something that they were looking at as part of the collective and inaugural class. So I would say that the FFA experience really was a competitive advantage for me. That first year we had a lot of leadership workshops and seminars, and the funny thing is almost every one of them I had done before in FFA, and everybody else that was in the class, it was their first time to go through a leadership or a leading without direct authority class, or a writing class, or a extempt kind of a speaking opportunity. All of those things I had done in FFA. So I would say that was probably the one experience that I could just really point to very clearly. But I would say, again, as you go through your career and you're in different situations and you're leveraging your different leadership style, you're working with different cultures in different areas, all of that are experiences that you come away with when you're in FFA. Leading a meeting, parliamentary procedure, all of those things I'm more aware of because of FFA. So I encourage students to take advantage of all the opportunities. It's very easy to kind of say, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm busy and I'm going to do this with my friends over the weekend. Those that really want to succeed take advantage, as was said before, on all the opportunities presented, and then they can pick and choose after they've experienced all those, which is really their strength.
Excellent. I would echo and ditto everything that Neely just said. I think that is the power of the program that students and our teachers are involved in. Captain Souza, what would be an example of where a competitive edge gave you an advantage?
Okay, I was going to say, can you repeat the question? Okay, got it. So I'm going to have to talk about the student athlete leader attributes that we look for in ROTC from young high school and college students that we're going to offer a scholarship to. And in Texas, last year we gave over $18 million in scholarships. So if you are a well-rounded, like Miss Neely said, that word really stuck with me. You got to be well-rounded because of who you're talking to. Who you're going to be leading isn't going to be the people you grew up with. It's especially if you join the Army. I'm from Maine, and I was thrown into a culture of a huge population from every ethnic and country you can imagine. And so you have to be well-rounded, and scholar, athlete, and leader. Not all scholarly, not all athlete, not all leader. So you have to have a good piece of each one of those to be a great leader in the Army, and that's what we look for. And because of those attributes, in scenarios throughout my time as a commander, the biggest thing that gave me a competitive advantage was, unlike some of my peers, when I made a mistake, I learned from that mistake. I thought about it, what happened, I talked about it with my peers, because you can't lead by yourself. You can't come up with solutions all by yourself. With my first sergeant, with my NCOs, hey, this is what we messed up on. How can we make it better? How can we prevent this from happening in the future when we're not here? So we write policy, we do training, we do stuff like that. So creating those fixes from one mistake and learning from them instead of repeating them like some of my peers did, it's really set me apart. Even as a young lieutenant and now as a senior captain, I still make mistakes. And if I'm not making mistakes, I'm not learning. And I tell my 6-year-old the same thing. If you're not making 3 mistakes a day, you're not learning. And so it's what you do with those mistakes that matter. So you learn from your mistakes, you make yourself better from them. It's when you start repeating the same mistakes that we have problems. But you have to have all those attributes. You have to be scholarly, you have to be athletic, you have to be fit to lead, and you have to have the confidence of leadership. So having those 3 things and applying them to those around you and to yourself to make yourself and your team and your organization better is what gave me a competitive advantage in multiple scenarios.
Excellent. Keith, examples of how a competitive edge gave you an opportunity?
No, absolutely. It's interesting as I sit and I listen to Neely and listen to Captain Souza and Aaron, listening to you over the past several years and being around all the wonderful people that are involved in the Texas FFA. I really hope people realize, especially the students, the amazing and powerful tool that they've got right at their fingertips to help them develop all these qualities and traits that other people have to just go on quests, right, to try to figure out how to get exposures to all these experiences. Makes me want to go be young again and join the FFA and try to get this thing right the second time around. But if I could kind of step back, I think the thing for me that has created a competitive edge over the years is it's all about people skills and communication, right? I'm the CEO of a publicly traded company today, but I rose up through the financial ranks, right? Got my degree in accounting, got a master's in finance, kind of firmly put myself into a quadrant where most people say, those types of individuals don't really want to talk to anybody, right? Unless maybe an economist, maybe they'll talk to the economist. But I focused on people skills and having the ability to influence and communicate, get involved in things like Toastmasters, right? Not everybody has the FFA that gives them the ability and opportunities to get out there and practice expository speaking. If you have an opportunity to get involved in something like Toastmasters that gives you practice, right? Because the only way to get proficient at something is to practice over, and it has to be muscle memory, right? You've got to be able to communicate to people and modify your communication style and sense and respond and react to questions in a way that really builds confidence in people. And Captain Souza, you talk about leadership, and I love reading military leadership books because at times it's some of the absolute best examples of people having the ability to change the way they communicate to what their troops need and what the situation needs. So without rehashing a lot of what's been already said, I would say if you have an opportunity to hone your communication skills and get out of your comfort zone, put yourself out there in a public speaking type role, join Toastmasters, take advantage of FFA opportunities to get there and speak. That will give you a massive competitive edge because it's becoming a bit of a lost skill in the world of social media and Snapchat and texting. I mean, if you can set yourself apart and really be able to engage vocally and communicate and influence people, you're gonna show yourself as a different kind of person.
Keith, let me tell you how right you are. You're so right that we actually have a session in the webinar on keys to effective speaking.
There you go.
We talked about the fact that we need you to be able to be effective communicators, both orally and in the written word. Mm-hmm. So we agree with you completely that the ability to step up, stand out, and share can give somebody a competitive edge. To the students right now, I guess, a couple of final thoughts, and you've heard it through all of the dialogue here. Number one, I tell students all the time, you're building 2 resumes in your life, 2 of them. You're going to build a resume until you graduate from high school, then you're going to start building one for the rest of your life. You have the opportunity while you're in high school to build that resume. I need to make sure everybody heard that. You have to build that resume. No one's gonna build it for you. Teachers and sponsors and the folks that are here, we're gonna provide the opportunity. We're gonna provide a pathway to get you to this chance to build your resume, but you've gotta do it. The other thing that Neely said, and Keith both, and Captain Souza, every one of you alluded to it. Get to know the people around you. We've got another session on professional networking. We use it, what's called the 3-foot rule. Get to know people within a 3-foot radius of you.
Or 6 feet.
Oh, excuse me. In the world of COVID, it is 6 feet now.
Right, gotta change that rule.
Practice that professional networking. I'm going to close just by saying this, and every one of you have said it so well. For 92 years, when you zip up that FFA jacket, you look just like everybody else. Nobody knows if you had a buffet breakfast or no breakfast at all. Nobody knows if you're a straight A student or the student that struggles. When you put that FFA jacket on, it levels the playing field. You now have the same opportunity as everybody else. The key is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to step up? Are you going to take advantage of the opportunities? And if you do, you will be able to utilize Texas Ag Science Education and the FFA as a competitive edge that will open career opportunities. And you have heard it loud and clear here today. So as we wrap up, we'll go one last round robin. Neely, any last words of inspiration that you would share with Texas FFA members?
One thing I would say is, in addition to, the keys to around leadership and communications that we've talked about, another thing I would say, as folks are applying for internships or jobs and opportunities, especially in this new COVID world where a lot of it will be remote, I think it's very important that you tailor your cover letter and your engagement to the opportunity. I think so many times people are just shooting in the dark and hoping that somebody responds to an opportunity. But when you're competing against 150 other resumes, you've got to do something that tells your story as to why this is important to you and why it matters to you. I think, the other panelists said it great, that you are also interviewing the company as they're interviewing you. And so the way that you start that interview process is through a really good cover letter that indicates what you're applying for and why you're applying for it. And so I would just stress, I think that we miss that a lot. I see that in applicants. And so I think that would just be my last kind of bit of advice to folks, is make sure you focus on the specific opportunity at hand each time you apply for that one.
Can I piggyback on that, Neely? All the time students are asking me if I would write a letter of recommendation or a reference letter. And I tell them I do not write to whom it may concern letters. If you want me to write a letter, I need you to find out who I need to address it to, because I want to address it to somebody, and I don't want it just in the ether. So that was excellent point. Captain Souza, what final words would you share with our Texas FFA members?
I would just tell you guys to really take something from what these leaders have been talking about for the past 30 minutes. And I don't know if you may have missed it, but everything we've talked about has the foundation of hard work. And I think if you're in the FFA, hard work, probably is something that you're not scared of. But it takes sacrifice of your personal time and sacrifice of things that you may not want to give up, and hard work. If you work hard and you're not the smartest and you're not the fastest, your work ethic is going to make you stand out. As long as you work hard and you care. I've mentored and developed many officers and young lieutenants. And I said, look, as long as you work hard and show that you care, you may think this is the dumbest thing you ever have been asked to do by the U.S. Army or anybody. But as long as you show up, you work hard, and sometimes you just got to pretend like you care. No one knows the difference between fake motivation and real motivation. We call it FM and AM, actual motivation and false motivation. No one can tell the difference. So if you show up and you work hard and you care, and you want to improve your organization, you're going to be successful. So don't be scared of hard work, because some of your peers will be, and that's going to set you apart and give you the competitive edge.
Great. Keith, wrap us up. What's your final thoughts on leadership?
Well, first of all, I agree with everything that Captain Souza and Neely mentioned, and yourself. And actually, I'm going to piggyback onto something that you mentioned, Aaron. My favorite business author is a guy named Jim Collins. I'm sure not a lot of the students out there have read Jim Collins, but as you get older, you might read some of his books. And he's an amazing researcher and certainly somebody who understands how to lead organizations and build great organizations. He talks about this concept called return on luck. People will sometimes look at someone successful and say, well, that person's lucky. His theory, which I fully support, is that everybody has those opportunities that come across their desk or into their home that are true opportunities. It's their chance at something, quote, lucky. But when Jim talks about it, he says, well, it's not the fact that you're lucky, it's what's your return on luck. And what he means by return on luck is not a lot of people recognize when an opportunity is presented right in front of them and they don't take advantage of it. So what I'm going to encourage everybody watching this webinar today and everybody in the FFA is you've got a massive opportunity sitting right in front of you, and you have opportunities at luck presented to you every single day. My challenge to you is, what's your return on luck? Are you getting out of your comfort zone, taking advantage of the opportunities, and building that resume?
Well, all I can say is, Texas FFA members, we've said it throughout the whole series, if you want to be the best, train with the best. Looky right here. I guarantee you, Neely did not just fall into that chair that she sits in with ExxonMobil. I guarantee you, Captain Souza did not just fall into that seat that he sits in the U.S. Army. And Keith Cline is a CEO. And how many companies now, Keith, did you ring the bell on at Wall Street? 3?
3, yeah.
Trust me, you didn't just fall into that. It was everything that was talked about today. Every successful venture in life started as a creative idea, and somebody had to hustle and design a competitive edge to make it happen. And I believe that the Texas FFA gives everybody a competitive edge. So to all of our guests, thank you so much for sharing some of your time, talent, and treasure. Captain Souza, we appreciate it. We always tell people that when our core values align, it makes sponsorships very easy. And I'm always a little always a little jealous for some of our sponsors, because when we recognize our military on stage on Thursday mornings at convention during the sponsor recognition, there's always one group that gets a standing ovation, and it is our military. And I just think that speaks volumes to the core values that our students possess. Thank you all for being here. If you will stay on for just a second, we'll do a quick debrief. But if you will,
on behalf of the Texas Army National Guard, I want to thank the students of Future Farmers of America. By being part of this organization, you're learning the skills and values to be a productive member of society, like loyalty, being loyal to those with whom you serve, duty, being able to continue to work even when you don't feel like it, respect, not only respecting yourself, but respecting the land and the livestock, selfless service, serving others even when it inconveniences yourself, honor, being honorable and having honorable transactions with whoever you do business with, integrity, doing the right thing even when nobody's looking, and personal courage, taking the hard right instead of the easy left. With these continued values, keep on doing what you're doing, and thank you.
hey, Texas FFA members, be sure to tune in for the 92nd Annual Texas FFA Convention. Strive for greatness. Strive to be great. We know you are. Hey, while you're at convention, be sure to check out the Foundation's virtual scavenger hunt. We're going to be giving away a $1,000 award scholarship every day from the students who get all of the scavenger hunt questions correct. So be sure to take a chance. Go to mytexasffa.org. Good luck.